Alright, Trickers and Trickers, time for the final episode of the day, which is Honor Among Thieves. At a rundown bar on Farius Prime, there are several customers, including the Dopterian and Afarian, that seems to be inhaling a drug product, playing Tonga with a human. The building bartender, Grave, refreshes their drinks. Miles O'Brien, unshaven in civilian clothing, sits at the bar and listens to some customers in the background. They are discussing how Ramos will be unhappy about the acquisition of faulty merchandise. They decide to order some food. Both suggest Krellin food. William Bibby says it always gives him heartburn. They joke about how his appetite will kill him someday. He says, "Don't get your hopes up." The Dipterian is about to use a comm booth on the wall, but Bilby yells at him that they're about to use it, as in scroll. He puts a small device on a mechanical implant on his neck, and a similar device on the comm booth screen, and interfaces with the computer. They continue listing what they want to order, and Kroll asks who wants to bill for their dinner. It's just the police department on Farius, but they billed him for yesterday's meal, so they decide on the municipal sanitation department. As he tries to access their account, O'Brien really activates a small device in his hand, and the comm booth began to shock Kroll. O'Brien jumps up and tells the other side to touch him, that he's being spiked. He then goes to the panel and begins entering commands. The electroshock stops and they help him to a chair. They complain that they spiked him just for trying to use their account code. Kroll pulls off the data board and finds that it is fused. They wonder what to do, since it would be too expensive to ask Ramos to pay for a replacement, but O'Brien offers to fix it for him for a price. They ask O'Brien his name, and he replies Connolly. They give him the data link and tell him to have it fixed and polished by tomorrow morning. In a dark, steamy alley, O'Brien walks up to meet a man. O'Brien explains what happens, and the man says that nobody has ever made contact with the Orion Syndicate so quickly. It turns out that 500 Starfleet operatives have recently been killed by the Orion Syndicate in just last year, and O'Brien is working for Starfleet Intelligence to find out who their informant in Starfleet is, so they couldn't risk recruiting him from within the organization. Once he's able to find out who's been passing on information, he can return to Deep Space Nine. But people find information on O'Brien's alias. He's a fix-it man, down on his luck. Chadwick, O'Brien's handler, tells him to get as close as he can and not to take any unnecessary risks, because if they find out who he really is, they will kill him. Meanwhile, in Deep Space Nine, Corcoran would interrupt at the same time, complaining simultaneously to report several technical problems, such as the internal security sensors and the fire suppression system in Quarks. Dr. Trick comes into ops and also complains about a malfunctioning infirmary. Dexter and Turbo come into ops when stopped short, forcing them to climb out. Major Kirk explains that it happens every time Chief O'Brien goes on leave, so someone really knows how he manages to keep the Starfleet and Cardassian technology working together. Dr. Trick goes to Captain Siskman's office about the problems, but the captain believes he's just worried about his friend. The captain explains that he cannot reveal the whereabouts of the chief, but assures Bashir that O'Brien can take care of himself. Back in Graves' Farius, Kroll, Flint, and Bilby are playing Tonga when the chief comes in. O'Brien hands the fixed neural interface to Kroll, but tries it on to test for feedback. Bilby is impressed with O'Brien's work and has looked into Connolly's background, knowing that he lives on Janami Street and his work history. O'Brien asks how he knows so much about the identity he's taken, still undercover, and Bilby doesn't respond. Instead, he takes her for a walk. In Bilby's apartment, where he shares with Chester, he locks the safe and pulls out 3 Klingon Type 3 disruptors. O'Brien sets up suspicious, and Bilby says he didn't bring him here to kill him. Apparently, the Orion Syndicate was looking for people who can fix things on Farius Prime, as Bilby shows him that the disruptors he needed to procure don't work. O'Brien diagnoses that the induction coils are burned out, and he says he can fix them. Bilby offers him some cake his wife made, and shows him pictures of his family who live on New Sydney. Bilby inquires about O'Brien's family, to which he says that he doesn't have any. Bilby, in not so many words, asks if he would like to work for him in the Syndicate. In the dark alley, Chad gives O'Brien the Klingon induction course he asked for, courtesy of the Klingon ambassador to Farius. Chadwick asks why Ramus, Bilby's boss, wants the disruptors. O'Brien says he doesn't know, neither does Bilby, and asks if he can contact his wife. Chadwick says he can't risk it, and O'Brien leaves to give the disruptors to Bilby. Back in Graves' bar, O'Brien gives them the disruptors, which they inspect. Flith asks where he got the replacement parts, which are hard to come by and furious. O'Brien just to tell him who his supplier is, to the point they get angry, and says he stole them from a warehouse on Degora Street, and he didn't want them to get implicated if he got caught. Bilby believes it, and decides to do something about Conley's clothes. So Bilby takes him to the same tailor he uses to buy a new suit. Later in Graves' bar, Yint, who sold Bilby the malfunctioning strippers, comes in asking what they want. Bilby says he wants his money back, but Yint refuses. Bilby decides to demonstrate by shooting Ying in the leg. Shooting into the leg. O'Brien tries to stop him, but Bilby fires again and kills Yint. Back in Bilby's apartment, Bilby confides in O'Brien to the point of revealing that there's an Orion Syndicate operative in Starfleet. He asks Conley to remind him to buy a birthday present for his daughter, and then if he'd like to go to New Sydney to meet his family. O'Brien agrees and inquires more about the Starfleet officer. Bilby says Ramus made him a raise a year prior, and that he's worked with the planet's weather control systems. Syndicate offered him a substantial amount of money, and he reveals the names of the undercover operatives in the Orion Syndicate. Bilby receives a message from Kroll saying Ramus wants to see him, so they go to Graves' bar. Ramus and his guards beam in, and shows him that the new client is a Vorta, Glennon, and that they are working for the Dominion. Raymond asks who O'Brien is, and Bilby witnesses for him, saying he's trustworthy. Glennon says he wants him to do something else for them, and that he'll contact him when it is time, and they transport out. Bilby explains to O'Brien that anything he does wrong, he's accountable for. O'Brien meets with Chadwick in the dark alley, and tells him who the informer is, as well as Vorta was meeting with the Syndicate. Lepus invited disturbing possibilities that could result of the Orion Syndicate working with the Dominion. Chadwick makes sense of O'Brien's assignment to find out what is going on before leaving to inform his superiors. Quickly becoming a valued member of their team, O'Brien assists the new associates in an attempt to rob the Megabolius. Using the data port, Coral and O'Brien are quickly able to navigate around the bank's three-tier security protocol and the isolation matrix protecting the data. Afterwards, Bubblix is offering a car girl for O'Brien as a gift, but politely refuses, saying he just got together with a girlfriend a few days ago called Kimiko. Bubble encourages him to settle down and have a family, telling him that's the most important thing. It does when he considers Conley a friend to him, and to him a friend is like family. O'Brien realizes that he is beginning to worry about Bilby and what will become of him after his assignment ends. O'Brien expresses this during his next meeting with Chadwick. He's reminded that Bilby made his choice when he joined the Syndicate, but also tells O'Brien that if they can build enough of a case against him, then he'll be sent to a Federation prison where he'll be safe. This is little help O'Brien, still troubled by what may lay ahead for Bilby, but even more than the fact that he will have to betray a man he now considers his friend. The next day, Bilby's group enters the bar only to find Ramus and Glennon waiting, having discovered that there is a traitor among them. Glenn identifies O'Brien to Bilby's horror, but it is Flith who shoots Graves dead. Ramus explains that Flith had conducted some extra business without informing the Syndicate or paying them the right credit cut, and noticed to Bilby that he had witnessed for Flith and that he'd be dead too. And now becomes clear what the Dominion wants from the Syndicate. Ramus and the Vorta instruct Bilby and his team to execute the Klingon ambassador Nefarious, who was strongly against the Klingon Federation alliance, using the disruptors that O'Brien repaired in order to imply that the ambassador was killed in a dispute with his fellow countrymen. It is the hope of the Dominion that the ambassador will become a martyr, and this will lead to a diplomatic breakdown between the Klingons and the Federation, ending their alliance and assuring the Dominion certain victory in the war. O'Brien passes information about the upcoming assassination attempt method Bilby will be using to penetrate the Klingons' embassy security onto Chadwick, who leaves to warn the ambassador. O'Brien realizes he's committed Bilby and his men to death at the hands of the Klingons, and tries to stop Chadwick, but told that all he's going to do is warn the Klingons about the assassination attempt and it's up to them how they respond. Chadwick says he won't shed any tears about members of the Orion Syndicate being killed. Chadwick then tells O'Brien that it's clear he's sympathizing with Bilby, but it's no longer a problem as his assignment is now over and he can return to Deep Space Nine. O'Brien, however, cannot simply allow his new friend to walk in certain death and knocks out Chadwick before rushing Bilby's apartment. Bilby greets O'Brien on his doorstep and lets him in. He's going to leave when O'Brien tells him it's a trap. O'Brien tries his best to talk Bilby out of the mission, first by claiming that his signal was traced when he infiltrated Klingon security. When the doesn't work, he tells the truth that he's working for Starfleet. At first, Bilby refuses to believe this, but O'Brien reasserts himself, and Bilby realizes the truth. Bilby's devastated that his new friend was actually a spy, reminding O'Brien that, as he wins for him, the wrath of the Syndicate will fall on him once the truth is known. O'Brien encourages Bilby to hide or turn himself into the Federation. Bilby, however, says that the only way to protect his wife and children from the Syndicate's retribution is to carry out his mission, even knowing that he will be killed. Before he leaves on his doomed mission, Bilby makes a final request of O'Brien to make sure Chester is cared for once he is gone. The last thing he asks if O'Brien has a family, and O'Brien confirms he does. Bilby is a little satisfied knowing family is the most important thing in the world, but that Bilby leaves for the last time as O'Brien sadly watches. O'Brien returns to Deep Space Nine, Chadwick having not decided to report O'Brien's assault, and tells Bashir everything that happened. He can't help feel but upset over his friend's death, and guilty for his own indirect part in it. Bashir assures O'Brien that there was nothing he could have done except for his duty. O'Brien doesn't feel any better, and Bashir tells his friend that he doesn't have all the answers for him he wants, but what he does know is that he's glad he's back. Bashir leaves, but O'Brien is not totally alone, having brought Chester back to the station with him. The cat goes to him, and as O'Brien strokes his new pet, he can't help but feel weighed down by recent events. Aww, that sucks. So let's take a look at a production note from this episode. Charles Halloran was originally cast as Roy Liam Bilby, but sadly passed away several days before principal photography began. Nick Tade, who initially lost Roy Hallahan, agreed to do it in his memory. However, despite Tate's excellent performance, loss of Hallahan was something which Ira Stephen Bear feels throughout this episode. Quote, wanted to put Colmiani against another actor and just let them hold the screen for 42 minutes, and within the science fiction setting make you care about the humanity of these people. That was the intent. It was a fragile thing. The episode's success was totally dependent on that relationship. If the relationship stinks, then the whole episode stinks. If the relationship is okay, then the whole episode is okay. And I think that's what we had. We had okay. Bear's comments sever the fact that when Hallahan was in the role, the Bilby/O'Brien relationship was going to be very much a father-son relationship, mainly due to the physical similarities between Hallahan and Miani. Same build, same height, same hair color, etc. But with Tate, it was felt that such a relationship wouldn't work. No one could imagine Tate as Miani's father, so it changed to a simple friendship, which Bear feels damaged the emotional core of the narrative. Quote, I still have trouble watching the show because I always see Charlie in it. As a character, O'Brien is so genuine and so trustworthy, and there's no guile in him. And for me, Charlie was the perfect guy to play Bilby, because he had what O'Brien has. It could have been reflections of two guys who were a lot alike, but Charlie would have had broken your heart. End quote. And now finally, let's take a look at some trivia from this episode. The story of Marcia Bilby and the Rand Syndicate is continued in Prodigal Daughter, a 7th season episode. The Syndicate itself had previously been mentioned in The Ascent, replying to the criminal runabout carrying Quark and Odo to a trial where Quark was scheduled to testify against it, and a simple investigation where Arrestus working as an undercover agent in an attempt to infiltrate it. Ferris Prime, which was mentioned in Key Part 1 as a side note, is the major location in this episode. The wharf Dex, Bashir, Lita, and Quark visit Ariza in Season 5 so that he was without sin. However, the same time Bilby claims Ray was persuaded Starfleet officer working at Ariza's weather control station to be an operative for Syndicate. There is no indication that this character was ever seen on screen in the earlier episode. Glenna was the Vorta who commanded the Jim and Art team, who commandeered the USS Defiant in the previous episode, One Little Ship. A new transport effect was designed for the episode for the scene where Amos and Glenn transport in. Although the Syndicate failed in their attempt to make it look as though a Klingon ambassador who advocated policy useful to the Dominion was killed by a political opponent, Garrick later used a similar tactic to bring the Romans into the war on the side of the Federation. As Ziegler chatted with his report to O'Brien, disclosing details of an undercover operation could have compromised security. Garrick Lofton does not appear in this episode. So I think this episode is kind of interesting, and yeah, it definitely has a whole lot of intrigue and mystery to it, which I kind of like. So yeah. So overall, I give Honor Among Thieves 3 warp cores out of 5. Anyway, tune in tomorrow as we take the next episode, Change of Heart. So, until then, live long and prosper, everybody.